It's more of the fact that 7 borrowed so much from different medias, where you had influences from like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you had Evil Dead, you had these influences from so many like slasher and horror films that it had a hard time within itself identifying as a Resident Evil game in and of itself. What's up, everybody? Death Pursuer here once again, and we're about a couple days removed from the Resident Evil showcase. Since then, I've kind of had the opportunity to let my thoughts on what was shown then kind of soak in a little bit, and I felt like I should just kind of share them briefly here. I did do a co-stream of the event on my Twitch channel, and after that particular event did end, I did sort of like a post-show deep dive sort of discussion on my overall thoughts on everything that was shown there. So I will be throwing that in this video as well after I wrap up here. But first things first, obviously I'm excited for the game. However, based on what was shown during the presentation, I feel like I kind of have to lower or temper not my expectations, but my excitement a little bit. Mainly because of the energy that was sort of given off during the showcase. Mainly what was shown during the gameplay portion, obviously. For me, it was more so giving off the vibe of the fact that this game might also suffer from the same problems of identifying itself as a Resident Evil title like 7 did. It didn't help in 7's case that 7 was obviously a soft reboot, and even more so, to elaborate more on that, the fact that the protagonist of that game, Ethan, was just such a blank slate, and to me probably one of the sorriest, excuses for an Avatar character that we've had in recent memory. We really didn't. I could probably argue and say, yes, we needed a soft reboot after what we went through with obviously RE6, but at the same time we didn't need it to the degree where we needed a complete blank slate of a character like Ethan. More so, probably could have done more well with a character who was kind of more aware and more personable to the situation around them. I'm not saying we needed a protagonist to drop cool one-liners like Leon or super stereotypical heroic liners at every bad guy that comes around, but someone who was just more, a little bit more personality, a little bit more reactionary to everything that's going on around them. And as we progress through the game, sort of realize the bigger, sort of come to the realization of the bigger picture of what's going on around them, and their will to hopefully develop the will to stop everything, stop what's going on behind the scenes. But to bring it back on track, though, that was the one aspect of RE7 that didn't help it. But the other thing that really didn't help RE7 in its sort of identity crisis was the fact that the inspirations that it took from like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and like Evil Dead, and then of course people have made connections to made the connection of Evie and the girl from Fear. I do believe that Resident Evil 7 had some sort of shred of a bit of that Resident Evil identity within it. However, it was overshadowed by just everything else going on in that game, and I have this same feeling that RE8 was pretty much giving off that same energy, that regardless of that what may be at the center, it may just be overshadowed by the elements that it is taken from what looks like from the Souls game, more specifically like Bloodborne. And then obviously the more action probably more action heavy aspect of it, which hopefully isn't too action heavy. Maybe hopefully there is a balance between some action and horror. And of course, everything else that it's kind of borrowing from Resident Evil 4. Obviously we have a new merchant, the Duke, and every all other the attaché case, and just all sorts of other elements of Resident Evil 4 that were presented in Village. Hopefully, all of that doesn't overshadow what the game could potentially be at its core. But at the same time, again, I can't help but be a little worried because, say what you want about the action trilogy, 4 through 6, but to me, at least those 3 games, in some way, shape, or form, had some ounce of Resident Evil, or some ounce of to where they all could identify as Resident Evil titles in some way, shape, or form, whether it was story or certain atmospheric elements to it. And obviously, even the characters, those 3 games could identify themselves as RE titles in some way, shape, or form. To what degree, that's entirely dependent on the individual, but in some way, shape, or form, they had some ounce of their own Resident Evil like identity within them. Unfortunately, when we got to 7, that identity is starting to fade a little bit, and it's fading even more so with 8. It feels like there's still that shred of identity there. However, like I said, in the case of 7, it was overshadowed by just everything else going on, everything that we took inspirations from. And I say that in the sense, I say that with in mind that, yes, sure, the RE series has always taken inspirations from something in some way, shape, or form throughout this series' lifespan. But at least, if the story wasn't built around it, like say the Revelations games, it still did, or it did it in a more subtle manner, to where you really had to have like a keen eye to kind of notice the nod to whatever it was taking some sort of inspiration from its particular like scene or area or what have you. With 7, it was in your face. They weren't very subtle with it. And when you play RE7, you end up questioning, like, is this supposed to be a Resident Evil game, or is this supposed to be the video game equivalent of a slasher film? And I get that same energy somewhat from Village, and that worries me. That said, I hope I'm wrong. I hope it maintains that small shred of identity that it just so may have, and it keeps that, and it balances that with everything else. However, based on just what we saw during the showcase, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. And again, it kind of worries me a little bit, but I hope I'm wrong. I just hope the game does well, but at the same time, we at this point, we don't know where it's very uncertain where we go from here. And if this is Ethan's last game, which one would kind of hope this is his last game, hope there is no telling where we're going to go, but I would personally hope that we bring everything back in and wrap up stories that need to be wrapped up or should have ended a long time ago, and expand on stories that have been long since abandoned and need to be built upon. But without further ado, I'm going to throw on over to the post-show discussion that I had with my Twitch chat. And as always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. The first-person horror video is coming. I kind of had to put that off another week or two because the showcase was happening, and I kind of wanted to get my thoughts on what was what was going on with that out there. So first person perspective, or first person horror perspective, is coming. And yeah, as always, until next time, guys, this is Death Pursuer signing off. All right, so I'm not gonna lie, I'm excited. I'm fairly excited, but now I'm kind of seeing some points here that and this kind of makes me nervous now that um a certain remake might be on the horizons because of a lot what was shown today. The breaking, like the breaking of the vase, the breaking stuff, the merchant is back, who's really let himself go, by the way. Um, yeah, that kind of, and I try not to like get into that, but I think that it pretty much cements where this is going now. That pretty much it cements this now. I can't tell you whether I'm excited for that direction or not. I'm very very nervous. I'm very nervous. That's all I can really say. I'm really really nervous about that. Um, the game looks like it's gonna be great, or I should say the game looks like it's gonna look great. That's what I should say. It looks like it's gonna look great. That first, the little, what seems like it's going to be like a hub world or hub area for the castle, that open area with the big chandelier and whatnot, that looks like that's probably going to be one of the most beautiful sceneries in the game to look at for certain, especially on next gen. The enemies, I guess at least we're getting somewhat of enemy variety in the game. However, boy, this is treading a very. I'm gonna be honest. I'm going to be honest. This is treading a very, very, very dangerous path. And yeah, like Spencer just said, it looks like it's borrowing quite a bit from RE4 and Bloodborne. I didn't want to say anything while the trailer was playing, but when Ethan was in that lower level area, fighting those enemies, and one of the enemies had a sword, I immediately thought about one of the Souls games. I Again, I'm more of the type where I like to keep an open mind to it. I like to keep an open mind and see, you know, basically just wait until the game comes out. But just again, this is it's one of those things where it's walking that line. It's walking that line, and it's gonna be, it's that same energy where by the end of this, a lot of people are gonna be split on. Hell, people are already split on this now. Well, people are gonna be really split on this probably by the end of everybody's playthroughs. By the time this game is out and about, people are really gonna be split on this. I will agree. What they did show there was not, and I don't know, maybe it was, again, it's one of those wait and see sort of deals. Um, some parts did look a bit less detailed than it probably should, and I hope that isn't the case by the time the game comes out. I really hope that's not going to be the case by the time the game comes out. What else? We already pretty much touched. We just, yeah. May is close. May is very close. It'll be here before you know it. Um, I just, as far as Village goes, that's all I can really touch on. It's just, it really is treading that line, and it looks like it is. It has that energy of RE4. It has the energy of the Souls games, especially with certain areas. And I just hope that we don't borrow so much from it too much that, again, we repeat that same mistake that. And don't get me wrong, I'm still excited for it. I still want to see what comes. I want to, just make that clear now. I'm excited. But at the same time, you can't help but be just a little skeptical in situations like this. Because I've made it a point where I've said that RE7, as much as I loved RE7 clearly has an identity crisis. And I'm not talking about, say, like the quote unquote identity crisis that like 4 has had and 5 has had, the action games have had, however you feel about those. It's more of the fact that 7 borrowed so much from different medias, where you had influences from like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you had Evil Dead, you had these influences from so many like slasher and horror films that it had a hard time within itself identifying as a Resident Evil game in and of itself. And that's kind of the energy I'm sort of kind of getting from Village. And I hope it's not too much of that same energy that 7 had. But I'm getting some of that energy from Village. And I'm kind of hoping that doesn't affect, the experience with the game. Because like I said, you do see inspirations from like I said, like Bloodborne and the other Souls games, and of course RE4. But hopefully there is more to that, in the sense where it has a better time. Hopefully it has a better time identifying itself as an RE game. But again, I'm getting that same energy that I got with 7, to where it's going to have that identity crisis. Now, REverse. That one I'm on the fence with. I'm gonna be honest. I'm on the fence with that. I don't understand why, and I gotta be honest. I'm gonna be 100% real with y'all. It's a neat concept. However, you are literally leaving money on the table for a multiplayer concept that the fandom actually wants. We could have easily taken, if you really wanted to celebrate the past 25 years of RE, you literally, and honestly, we continue to beat on this, but it's true. Outbreak. That's it. Outbreak. And if to take it even a step further than that, if Outbreak would pretty much if you really wanted to celebrate the last 25 years, Outbreak with pretty much all the characters in the series. Put a bit of a twist on it. You go through certain scenarios as protags, you go through certain scenarios as the antagonists. It's money on the table, and one that the fandom actually wants. And I, for the life of me, cannot understand why companies like Capcom continuously just turn their noses up at it and just ignore that fact. I mean, again, Resistance wasn't for everybody. Neat concept. REverse, I can honestly say it's not going to be for everybody. Just looking at it, it's not going to be for everybody. Neat concept. But with that concept alone, of what you showed right there, you literally could take Outbreak and what you're doing with Reverse, put those together, and there you go. There you go. And I would guarantee you that shit would sell. Now, I'm not gonna jump too hard all over Reverse. I'm gonna, and I mean, at least they said it's gonna be free for those who purchase Village. That in itself, and hopefully, and with that being said, hopefully, I am hoping that this isn't another case of 3 making Resistance where it was too much focus, where we find out there was a bit more focus on one than there should have been on the other. Obviously, I can't wait to see what Infinite Darkness has to offer, or what we do with that. I will say, now that they've elaborated on where Infinite Darkness takes place, excuse me. I'm hoping, and I know this is shot in the dark here. Personally, I am hoping the journey of Infinite Darkness is more Claire focused. And here's why. And this is something that's been touched on before. Between Code Veronica and Revelations 2, there's just that big gap with Claire that we never really got to spend much time with Claire, especially with that huge gap. So I want to know, like, you know, I want to know more of what was Claire's journey throughout, you know, in between those two games, and and pretty much the personality change that obviously went down and that in Revelations that a lot of us are lost on. I mean, hey, like I said, it's wishful thinking. I would like for something like that to happen too, but like, again, it may, and again, I'll take it for what it is, but it's just, you know, it's one of those things. I would definitely like to see this more. I would like to see more of Claire, and since it is a bit after RE4, get a little bit of closure on what Claire has been up to, you know, in between Code Veronica and Rev 2. So yeah, pretty much to recap, like, yeah, sure, I'm excited for Village. It overall, like, yeah, like you said, it's a bit of a mixed bag here. I'm still looking forward to Village, but at the same time, it's one of those things now. I've applied this. I started off applying this with wrestling, but I have to do the same with video games, and I think a lot of people have to do the same. And we kind of have to do the same thing in the RE community, where it's certain, and hell, probably, I think a lot of people have already been doing this, but you kind of have to approach at arm's length so you don't get burnt too bad. But I am hoping that Village turns out to be good, that it turns out to be enjoyable. Again, it's that energy that I'm getting from it now, and like I said, what they showed today pretty much cements it.